Warner Brothers and DC Studios have a lot to think about now that we pretty much know what is happening with Supergirl at the box office. Definitively, the chance of this movie even hitting $200 million almost nil. Almost not going to happen. It is going to lose a couple $100 million plus. I know a lot of James Gunn fans don't like to hear that. They like to deny reality. They like to be wrong about the numbers while insisting they are right. But that is the reality of the situation, even though DC Studios admits Supergirl is a flop, yet insisting its reboot universe remains on track. We shall see, because we've also got some other interesting things that are happening with regard to DC in the past few days that make you wonder because they seem very, very reminiscent of Disney, Lucasfilm, and Star Wars, and we're seeing how that is turning out, and that is not a path that DC wants to go down. That is not a recipe DC wants to follow. And here's the other thing too. A lot of people who are defenders of James Gunn like to talk about, well, he's not going to be the one in control of all these movies because a lot of people are worried. They say James Gunn has a very simple formula, a very simple taste that in doses can be great. That's what's so funny with a lot of people give me backlash when I go hard on Gunn and DC is I loved Guardians of the Galaxy. By the way, I loved Snyder and Gunn on the Dawn of the Dead remake. Great, great movie. The Belko experiment. Great movie. So I'm neither a Zack Snyder guy who's like I love everything Zack Snyder or James Gunn. Either direction, they both have done some stuff I love. Both have done some stuff I don't. Guardians of the Galaxy. One of the reasons, first of all, the casting was fantastic. Okay, but one of the reasons in terms of James Gunn that it did so well is because James Gunn brought James Gunn to the Marvel universe, which is something they hadn't had. It was a little bit different. But can you imagine that in every single Marvel movie? Because yes, you are getting James Gunn in every single DC movie. That is the problem, as it says here. And this is from The Hollywood Reporter. Behind the Supergirl bomb, competing cuts, creative differences. For months, DC Studios knew the film wasn't working. Things came to a head in March when the studio tested its own cut against one from filmmaker Craig Gillespie. And I believe, now, neither one of them tested well, but they went with the studio's version, and the studio has the right to do that. But what does that mean? That means they went with the James Gunn version of Supergirl. It says here, if you thought Supergirl felt like a James Gunn movie, there's a reason for that. James Gunn, a director who spent years building his reputation as a filmmaker, who understood the frustration of studio interference, became the studio interference himself, wresting control of Supergirl away from its director in post production. A new bombshell report from The Hollywood Reporter, which is what I was just showing you, detailing the behind the scenes struggles of Supergirl, reveals that Gunn's DC Studios took a much heavier hand with the film than previously known after creative differences emerged with director Craig Gillespie. By the way, this is also how you scare away talent for future movies. According to The Hollywood Reporter, Supergirl suffered through a difficult post production process that eventually led DC Studios to create its own competing cut of the movie, bringing in longtime Gunn collaborators and ultimately choose the studio's version over Gillespie. They were not creatively aligned, is the polite way of describing things. So DC Studios created its own cut. That is, James Gunn created his own cut. As early as the fall of that year, which was last year, so, not quite a year ago, the studio and Gillespie knew the movie wasn't working. After a December test screening failed to deliver the results DC Studios hoped for, the studio reportedly decided to take matters into its own hands and took charge of the post production to make its own cut. You had James Gunn's longtime editor joining the film as well. Writer Jeremy Slater in The Hollywood Reporter described it as a Gunn favorite to assist during post production. Well, there you go. One of the biggest problem areas was reportedly the climax, with THR stating one issue at play was the climactic fight, which was reconfigured. I would love to see what the climactic fight was for Craig Gillespie, because I didn't like it with James Gunn. Apparently, there were more than, oh, well, this is what I just said, not just the writing changes. He brought in his editor who worked on all three Guardians of the Galaxy films as well as Peacemaker. Now, whether people like it or not, as it says here, Supergirl facing $244 million theatrical loss. There's no way to spin this. It is just above $100 million. Now, for those who don't know, it is roughly 50% of that goes to the studio. Okay. The theaters get the rest. Now, it varies from country to country, but it's roughly right about 50%. Some countries take a little less, some take a little more, but you're going to be pretty accurate just splitting it down the middle at 50-50. That means right now the studio is going to get about 51, $52 million on a, I'm told, about 170 to 190, so we'll say $180 million budget, another 100 million plus spent on marketing. This movie needs to make roughly in the range of 500, depending on how much was spent on marketing. I don't think we have a hard number. 500 to 600 million to break even. It's going to be lucky if it does 150 million dollars. So yeah, we're talking, even if it's not 244, that's what it's facing, but it's probably at least $200 million that DC is going to lose on this. And now, in this past week, to sort of deflect, you had a Mr. Terrific series being announced. Batman casting rumors are happening. They're talking about, they made an announcement on the Deathstroke and Bane movie moving forward, although they don't have any talent or writer attached. They're talking about casting for Gorilla Grodd in a Jimmy Olsen series. So, what does that sound like to you? And that's what I'll close with. This is what Star Wars did to us, right? When Star Wars was falling off a cliff, and everything was failing, they kept telling us about there were all these new projects that kept getting announced, projects that have never seen the light of day, projects that probably will never see the light of day. We went 7 years between theatrical releases for Star Wars, and all they ended up giving us was a basically 2 episodes of a TV series that had already lost all its goodwill because of a disastrous season. Started off strong, fell off a cliff, then that's when they wanted to give us the movie. So I'm going to leave it there. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. Look, I hope they're able to make changes, whether it's James Gunn leaving or whatever it is, and right the ship. I don't want to see DC disappear from the movies. I like DC. Okay. So this isn't about, oh, I want to trash it because I don't like it because, I'm a Snyder guy or I'm a Marvel guy or whatever. No, I want to see this stuff. I want to see a good Batman again. I want to see a good Wonder Woman again. I want to see DC be successful, but this isn't the way to do it. They've got to make changes. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. I will talk to you later.